we had GA girls, girls auxiliary, and Mission Friends was what the children's program was at that time, and RA's Royal Ambassadors was the girls, and of course we had training union we had church on Sunday night, and we had training union when we were in the old building, and we were having a revival meeting. I was church clerk at the time, and I was having a hard time getting everybody's name. There were 16 people went forward.
The first time I remember going there it was winter, and it was slushy, and because it didn't have grass, and it was dirt, mud, and we had to go in, and they would have a especially Wednesday night meeting around the potbelly stove in the back of the church.
Yeah.
We had 1 and 2 year olds. There was about 10 or 12. Me and Vernon we would have a blast. We'd be on the floor with them, even when there was troubles here and a lot of people left. It's like, no, I'm not here for the people. I'm here for Jesus.
Pastor, I was ministry assistant at the time. I started in 2001, and Thomas was the Vietnamese pastor, Thomas Tran. And he would come in the office every Thursday to run his bulletin for the congregation. And then he would preach the sermon to me, basically. And I got really good at understanding him as long as I watched his lips move. But Thomas was truly an inspiration in how he led his congregation. He encouraged many of them to become U.S. citizens, and he would take them to Wichita for the citizenship tests, and worked very closely with them. And he was just an inspiration in the stories he would tell about being in Vietnam and the South Vietnamese Army, and how he was a scout, and he was not afraid of confrontation or in the work that he had. He let's just put it this way, as a citizen here, he wasn't afraid to have guns, and he protected his family. And there were times that they felt threatened, and he wasn't afraid to stand up for them. So
he kind of had the reputation that nobody messes with him because, again, he wasn't afraid to defend his home and family.
And he was just as earnest in defending the faith as well.
Well, one day it was announced in the worship service that the church had applied for it and was receiving a summer missionary. And that was a youngster who graduated from high school and was giving, a good portion of their summer out of high school into mission work. And I remember we went home that Sunday and sitting at the dining room table, and it's like we almost said at the same time, let's offer to have him stay at our home. And sure enough, they took us up on that. And the young man was Phil Walker from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and he stayed with us. And I tell you, it was just the perfect setting. Phil was a great singer, had a tremendous voice, so he and Colleen hit it off, right from the start. And a young guy, he liked to eat. Colleen liked to cook, and so they hit it off real well in that department. And it was just such a wonderful blessing to us. It was not burdensome. And on the personal side and on the spiritual and mission side, he helped with children's camp and went to Super Summer, and just was such a fine young man that, again, it wasn't a burden to have him living with us. It was just such a big blessing. And it was wonderful. Our kids just got so attached to him. You know, they were kind of weepy-eyed when he left. And about 10 years later, we received a letter from Phil, and he was married, and was just a heartwarming story thanking us for that summer experience. And he said, I kind of have a better understanding now as an adult as opposed to a high school graduate, what that was like, and thanked us again. And that was, again, just so meaningful to us.
Thanks to interested children and youth. That's the future. And you have to keep the parents interested, because of course that's the only way you keep the children in churches, by the parents.
Keep growing, and really listen to the Lord. He's the one that can do miracles, and he's the only one that counts. If you could just love Jesus as much as he loves us, we'd have it made.
I think just that the church keeps growing and reaching out in the community, and is a beacon up here on the hill for Christ to continue to do that.
I think the best thing we can do is not forget our first love, you know, and I think if we're have that in mind and are obedient and, you know, following the ways of the Lord, I don't think we can go wrong regardless of what year it is.